Okay, boxing fanatics. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, the Ring Magazine has released their new heavyweight rankings, and unsurprisingly, Alexander Usyk is still at the top. So, the full list is as follows: Alexander Usyk number one, Tyson Fury number two. No, sorry, that's Alexander Usyk is the champion. Tyson Fury is number one. Deontay Wilder is number two. Anthony Joshua number three. Joe Joyce number four. Andy Ruiz number five, Dillian Whyte number six, Luis Ortiz number seven, and Joseph Parker number eight, Filip Pogovic number nine, and Frank Sanchez number 10. So yeah, not really much shock there, to be honest. I mean, I think most people would agree that Usyk deserves to be number one. I mean, he holds 3 out of 4 belts at heavyweight. He's obviously beaten Joshua twice in a row, and he tried to make the fight with Fury, didn't happen. But look, Fury holds most of the belts at heavyweight, so I think most people wouldn't argue that he's kind of the main man in the division at the moment. And obviously now there's speculation that Usyk may face Dubois next, so for the WBA strap. So Dubois is a WBA mandatory, so that could happen. But then there's also reports that Usyk could fight Deontay Wilder as well, which is really interesting. Tyson Fury is at number one. So yeah, I think most people would agree that obviously Fury has the WBC belt, he has the remaining belt, and I mean for many people Fury is the number one heavyweight in the division, even beyond Usyk. But in this list, he's technically behind Usyk. Fury obviously coming off a dominant performance over Chisora in December. Obviously was involved in negotiations with Usyk. Didn't happen for whatever reason. And it remains to be seen who Fury fights next. Really, it's really a pick 'em, to be honest. I mean, it could be anyone. It really could be anyone. I don't think it's going to be Joshua next, but that could be a fight later on in the year. I mean, it could even be someone like Ngannou. I mean, it's really hard to predict who Fury is going to fight next. Let's just hope he gets back in the ring. And there's also reports not long ago that Fury is thinking about retiring again. So it really is hard to pick what's going to happen. Deontay Wilder is, I mean, yeah, like I mentioned, he's speculated to fight Usyk next, which is interesting. I think many people would like to see that. He did come back after losing to Fury twice in a row. He did come back and beat Helenius, destroy Helenius in one round. I mean, if Wilder Usyk happens, that would be great, and that would also show us kind of how good Wilder actually is as well, how he does against Usyk. Number three, Anthony Joshua. Joshua has recently returned to the ring and he beat Jermaine Franklin in fairly dominant fashion. I think most people wanted him to go in there and destroy Franklin, but if you actually look back at the fight, he did win in good fashion. I mean, he did win most of the rounds, so he done his job. And now Joshua is speculated to face Dillian Whyte next. Just behind him is Joe Joyce. I mean, Joe Joyce is really building momentum. He obviously beat Joseph Parker, and now he's set to face Zhilei Zhang next week, which should be interesting because Zhilei Zhang is no pushover really. We saw against Hrgovic, Zhilei Zhang is a decent fighter, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But Joe Joyce definitely building momentum and could be in line for a shot as well. I mean, he's the WBO mandatory. He's the number one in WBO, so we could see him, face Usyk at the end of the year. I mean, there's no reason why that can't happen. Then we've got Andy Ruiz. Andy Ruiz, I mean, we'd love to see him a bit more active. He's not been active. I mean, he got a decent win against Luis Ortiz, but it's a shame because there was kind of speculation he would face Wilder at one point. You saw him kind of call out Fury on Instagram or whatever. And again, just nothing seems to be happening with Andy Ruiz. It's just inactivity, inactivity, inactivity. But look, no one can deny Andy Ruiz is a great fighter. We saw him, you know, he was the first man to give Anthony Joshua a loss. So, he's a good fighter. I guess inactivity and arguably his weight is what kind of holds him back from being even higher up on the list. Dillian Whyte obviously winning a majority decision over Jermaine Franklin before Joshua even fought him. Many people thought it was a little bit fortunate, but look, he got the win regardless, and now it looks like White's going to face Joshua, and we'll come on to that after. Luis Ortiz, I mean, interesting that he's still in the list because he is literally 44 years old, and there's really been no claims as to what he's actually doing. We don't even know if he's going to carry on or not after his loss to Ruiz. I mean, we've got to assume that he's near the end of his career now. To be honest, Parker number 8. I mean, Parker still only 31 years old. obviously former WBO champion, beat Andy Ruiz years ago. Got knocked out by Joe Joyce, but returned against Jack Massey and won. Wasn't very spectacular, but he won. Still ranked in the top 10. Nice, yeah. So Joseph Parker's still there. Number 9, we have Filip Hrgovic. Hrgovic is a bit of a boogeyman, but maybe less so after his performance against Zhang. Hrgovic is highly ranked with the IBF, so it's also possible he could face Usyk towards the end of the year. That's also possible. Depends which mandatory is called first, really. And then number 10, we have Frank Sanchez, who's like a bit of the dark horse of the heavyweight division. Cuban, undefeated. And yeah, it remains to be seen. I mean, Frank Sanchez hasn't really got any like established names on his resume, really. His best win's probably FA Jagba. But look, he's a dark horse, and we'll see what he does. So that's the top 10 rankings. Top 10 heavyweight rankings according to Ring Magazine. Moving on, let's talk about Joshua versus Dillian Whyte. So according to Eddie Hearn basically in a recent interview with the DAZN boxing show basically said that that's the fight that he wants Joshua to take next. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it, because Joshua is, evidently still not at his full confidence. And some would say Dillian Whyte's seen better days as well. But commercially, it's a good fight because, they faced each other before. They both got good followings in the UK. I mean, Joshua's obviously got a massive following in the UK. Always has done since he's broke onto the scene. But Dillian Whyte has also done pay-per-views in the past as well. So they both got good followings, and they're both at a crossroads. They're both in the latter stages of their career. Dillian Whyte obviously had that world title shot against Tyson Fury, failed. And Joshua lost twice to Usyk. They both faced Franklin recently, so it really just makes sense on a lot of levels. And from Joshua's standpoint, if he can't get through Dillian Whyte, there's no way he has any chance against the likes of Fury or Wilder. I think it's fair to say. I mean, Wilder, you could still say is a bit of an unknown quantity until this day. He's only ever faced. Yeah, but then I guess if you compare his performance against Fury compared to White's. Well, it's arguable, but anyway, look, Joshua and Whyte, they're in a similar stage of their careers, and I think commercially it makes sense. And if you're Eddie Hearn, if you're trying to get Joshua's confidence back up, it probably also makes sense as well. So that is a real possibility, to happen probably in July. And finally, let's talk about Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. So Gervonta Davis recently had some choice words for Garcia. Basically said that Garcia's pretending that he's this virtuous person and praise this and praise that, and he's basically saying that Garcia's not as squeaky clean as he makes out. We do know Garcia obviously had that time off for whatever reason. He had like sort of mental health issues. But look, it's a massive fight. It's happening on April 22nd. Probably the biggest fight of the year so far. Arguably one of the biggest fights of the year so far. Davis Garcia. Davis is very highly ranked within the boxing fraternity, and Ryan Garcia, thanks to social media, but also his talent as a boxer, has a massive following as well. So that's a really big fight. We're going to see that on April 22nd. And then Davis also said what he thinks is going to happen. He said he'll knock Ryan Garcia out in round 7 or 8, which is interesting. I mean, yeah, Davis, he's got 26 knockouts out of 28 fights, so he can definitely punch. And Davis is notoriously kind of a slow starter, and then he seems to always find that magic shot. I mean, against Rolly Romero, that was an interesting fight for Romero. Some would say he done pretty well in the early stages. Then Garcia landed a devastating left hook, and it was kind of similar against Hector Luis Garcia as well. Davis landing some sort of shot which made Garcia lose his vision or something temporarily, and forcing a stoppage. But yeah, I mean, Davis just really adding fuel to the fire here. I mean, we're literally only 2-3 weeks away, so I guess the more build up, the better. It should be very interesting. I mean, we know that Ryan Garcia will be a little bit of a physical disadvantage in the fight. I mean, he's been fighting at 140 pounds, and he's going to have to go down to 136 pounds, and then also comply with a 10-pound rehydration clause as well. So, Davis will have a few advantages going in there, but look, Garcia is the bigger guy. He's the taller guy and he's the bigger guy. So I think it still makes for a really good fight. Again, this is just all build up what Davis is saying here. But look, if he's promoting the fight, then it's a good thing. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. That's my report of the biggest news in the last few days. And yeah, please like and subscribe, and catch you soon.